What's up, guys? Doug Polk here, and welcome back for another episode of Poker Hands. And today we're going to be taking a look at a six-figure pot played between Ryan Fee and Garrett Adelstein on Live at the Bike. But before we jump into that, I want to let you guys know that today is the last day of the Upswing Poker Black Friday sale. We have 20% off anything on the site that includes merchandise like, of course, No Limit is a way of life. Get all your No Limit Hold'em merchandise that you need to help support the greatest game. You might be asking yourself, Doug, why would we need anyone to tell us that No Limit Hold'em is the greatest game? We all already knew it. Well, that might be true, except for Joe Ingram.
Pop Limit Omaha, the card. Pop Limit Omaha, the great game. Pop Limit Omaha, the great game. Pop Limit Omaha, Pop Limit Omaha. Pop, 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 pop. The king goes skrrr. Pop, 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 pop. Skitty king, pop, pop. Limit Omaha, and the poop, 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 boom.
Joey has been furthering his agenda for too long, and it's time we stepped up to the plate and made a difference. Which is why we came up with these unique new designs like No Limit Hold'em as a way of life, and of course, Eat, Sleep, No Limit Hold'em. The choice is simple, really. Would you prefer to have some kind of limit or no limits at all? It's really your choice. Anyway, we're going to be ending our sale tonight at midnight, so if you've been debating jumping into some Upswing courses, now might be the time to do so. Okay, so on that note, let's go ahead and jump into this hand between Ryan Fee and Garrett Adelstein from Live at the Bike.
What are the stakes next Friday? 200, 400 with a 1K ante.
Yeah.
Wait, stop the episode. What's that?
200, 400
With a 1K
ante.
Yeah.
Who's that talking? Is that Ryan Feldman? The host of Live at the Bike?
Huge.
Tell me that isn't a huge game. That is worthy right there.
This is a huge game.
Yeah.
That's a huge game.
The person in charge of setting the games that we would know to play when we show up at the bike? Is that him?
Dan Shack, Josh Macchiello, Matt Berkey, Ryan Fee, Doug Polk, Jungle Man Dan Cates, Dan Murr, and Garrett. That is the game.
But does he let us know what the stakes are going to be a week from that day?
200, 400
With a 1K
ante.
Yeah.
What are the stakes?
200, 400
With a 1K
ante.
Yeah.
Who's in that lineup?
Dan Shack, Josh Macchiello, Matt Berkey, Ryan Fee, Doug Polk.
But what are the stakes again?
200, 400
With a 1K
ante.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you've made that clear enough to me. I'm not sure if
Yeah, this is a huge game. That is a massive game next week.
Wait a second. There's an ante?
200, 400
With a 1K
ante.
Yeah.
You know what seems fair to me, guys? Bringing $1 million and loaning everyone money, because if you're the host of the week, it should kind of be your job to give everyone money. I mean, I don't see any reason why that doesn't just make sense.
It's his week. If he wants a 200, 400 game to run, bring $1 million to make sure that everybody in the game is facilitating.
So you're telling me that the big blind...
200, 400
With a 1K
ante.
Yeah. Huge.
Tell me that isn't a huge game. Yeah, this is a huge game. That is a massive game next week.
Dan Shack, Josh Macchiello, Matt Berkey, Ryan Fee, Doug Polk, Jungle Man Dan Cates, Dan Murr, and Garrett. That is the game. Pocket eights for Garrett and Ryan Fee with kings. Here we go. Here we go.
Seen a lot of big hands today.
Oh, and a lot of them involve Garrett and Ryan Fee.
Yeah.
That's next Friday. That's the 200, 400 game next Friday.
3-bet to 2,600 here with kings. He hadn't had a really big hand like that yet, I think. Mostly like marginal or, medium-sized hands.
Right. 1K ante is just for the big line, not per player.
And of course, Garrett's going to make the call.
Our hand begins at $5,100 with a $200 straddle, and Garrett opens up with pocket eights from the low jack. Certainly a standard open. You want to be raising all your hands in from this position, yada, yada, yada. You guys know the drill. Action folds to Ryan Fee in the cutoff, who looks down at my second favorite hand in No Limit Hold'em, pocket kings. Now, maybe once in a blue moon you want to trap, especially with aggro people behind, but you should almost always be raising this hand, which Fees does, bumps it up to $2,600 to go. The action folds back around to Garrett, and your hand's certainly too good to go anywhere, but not strong enough for a raise, so I pretty much would always call this. Garrett does make that call, pretty standard play pre-flop from both players, and let's take a flop.
Not 1K ante per player, 1K ante just for the big blind. They're paying all the antes. 10-9 deuce, and Ryan Fee with the best hand. Garrett with a pair, backdoor flush out, backdoor straight draw. He's probably going to call once here at least.
Yes, the 200K ante is in the big blind. So will the 1K ante be next Friday, I believe, right?
Yeah, we like to do the big blind paying just one ante for the whole table. It creates more action when the big blind feels more invested in the pot as opposed to the button. And it's also just a lot quicker to have one person pay all the antes. It is an ante because it's dead in the middle and anybody can win it.
Ryan bets 33 into 55. Garrett makes the call. Pretty strong bet right there.
The flop comes 10-9 deuce with 2 spades. Both players miss. And this is a very good board for Ryan Fee. Pretty much anytime you have kings and the flop doesn't have an ace, it's a good flop. Now, Fee decides to go ahead and bet around 60% pot, and I like his play. There are a lot of draws here, a lot of hands you want to get some value from, and Garrett can certainly have a wide array of holdings pre-flop when he calls when they're this deep. Now, back over to Garrett with pocket eights. You know, it's not really one of your favorite spots, but when you have the spade and there are 2 spades on the board, you're probably going to have to see the turn. What I will say is this, though. I would like to occasionally see Garrett turn his hand into a bluff and go for a check raise. You can barrel on a spade, you can barrel on a jack or a 7 or an 8. So you got a lot of turns where you can actually continue to bluff on or pick up equity or get your opponent to fold. Now, it's not the kind of play you can do all the time, because if you just check raise whenever you have a pair with a spade, you're going to end up bluffing too much. But this is one of your better hands to choose to go ahead and bluff with. It's also worth saying that I think hands like King Jack, Queen Jack can be better bluffs. They have better equity when they're called, and also you block over pairs rather than the lower straight draw and flush draws. So I think those hands might be hands we choose to bluff with more often. I just think from time to time you want to work 8s into that play as well. Garrett decides to make the call, and let's take a turn.
This guy's proposing to his girl after winning the vote. Yeah. What if they would have lost? Like, would he still propose that night?
16,000.
Probably wait a few weeks. Yeah, he probably would have waited. Yeah.
So Ryan Fee bets 16,000 here, and
Man, 16K into a 12K pot. There goes that over bet again.
and yet Garrett in a tough spot. And Garrett, you can see, is actually deeper than 50K here.
Oh, and Garrett's going to make the call with the
He
ace.
calls.
The turn comes an offsuit 3, and Garrett checks it over to Fees. Now, this is a bit of an interesting decision for Ryan. He has to decide what size he likes. In general, in these situations, you should look to go for a 2/3 or 3/4 pot size. They are playing a bit deeper, so sometimes you're going to want to work over betting into your strategy. The question is, with what kinds of hands and how often do you want to be doing it? Fees decides to go ahead and bet 16,000 here with kings without a spade, and I like this play a lot. When you have kings, you block king, queen, and king, jack, which are hands that would fold basically no matter what the turn size is, so it's more likely your opponent has a hand that can continue. Also, when you don't have the king of spades, you put hands like king, queen, or king, jack of spades into very difficult spots when they're facing this size. Now, realistically, if he has king of spades, it's going to be a king, queen, or king, jack of spades, and these hands are going to have to either call or raise, even against this large size, because they have simply too much equity. Another thing worth noting here too, especially as you're this deep, I think most players would look to check raise a hand like a set on this flop or 10-9 suited. So when Garrett does check call the flop, he's much more likely to have some sort of draw, a 10 or a 9, or some kind of lower pair. It's not too likely he's trapping. He certainly could occasionally, but it's not the most likely. Additionally, he's not too likely to have a hand like pocket threes, because against that larger flop size, he really shouldn't be calling with too many of those hands. So kings know that they're usually going to be good here against a check. Now, so far for Garrett, I've been on board with all of the plays, but the turn is where things go off the rails a little bit. This is one of your worst hands to call in the turn. Not only are you drawing to 2 outs when you are behind, but additionally, you block all kinds of hands that you want Fees to have. You want him to have a hand like the 8 high flush draw. You want him to have a hand like 8-7 suited, or Jack 8 suited, or like that time I had 8-6 suited on Live at the Bike.
No, he's reaching.
Oh
no,
my gosh.
God, no way. Whoa!
Oh my God!
He called.
Oh my God!
Oh my
the most
God!
insane hand I've ever commentated on.
Whoa!
That's just
Anyway, I'm not a fan of the call here from Garrett. You have so many better hands to choose from. I'd rather have a hand with a 10 in it. I'd rather have some kind of overcard. I'd rather have more equity. This is just a hand you got to ditch on the turn. But I will say this, okay, in Garrett's defense. If you're going to call the turn with a hand that only improves on 2 rivers, you got to be looking to call all the way down, or you're going to get seriously owned by people that like to barrel. And Ryan Fee enjoys his barrels. So we have a pretty large pot brewing. Let's take the river.
So he has actually about 55K behind, not 35. So he has about 20 or 25K more than what it says here. And Ryan Fee with kings. 44K in the middle already. This is a massive pot. Look at the overbet on the turn by Ryan Fee. He bet 16K over 2x pot on the turn. Sorry, not over 2x. Over pot on the turn. 16 into 12. And now there's 44K in the pot. And now Ryan has to decide, do I want to check back or do I want to go for value with my 1 pair here?
So you really think that
I think that
Garrett can have combos here that can win? Like 9.
I think Ryan or Garrett could easily be trapping here with a set on the turn. I think that Ryan might just take his showdown value and win this hand. I mean, it's going to be a great value bet based on the cards that we see. He goes all in here.
Wow.
I mean, it's a great bet, but I'm saying that it also wouldn't be bad to check back once you get called with the overbet on the turn.
Definitely enjoy the analysis here from Ryan Feldman, except for the analysis part. This river is a mandatory jam. Your opponent should never have Jack 8 suited. Your opponent should never have 8-6 suited. Your opponent should never have a hand like 7s, although clearly that's at least a little bit possible. In order for Feast to not be good here with pocket kings on the river, his opponent has to have either trapped a flopped set, which again, not very likely, has pocket 7s, which is very unlikely, or has been trapping the entire time with a hand like aces, again, very unlikely. So realistically, what hands do I think Ryan Fee loses to? I would say maybe pocket 3s with a spade. I would say maybe a hand like 9-7 suited. Debatable if that should call turn, but if 8s are calling, you gotta say 9-7 suited is calling as well. But there are many other hands that Fee is going to be beating here when he jams and gets called. Hands like any 10. Hands like maybe any 9, hands like queens, hands like jacks. There are many holdings here that Garrett can be calling with, and this is actually a very safe board. It's a board where not many hands improve pre-flop, particularly when you call a 3-bet when you're out of position. So I absolutely like this bet from Ryan Fee. In fact, when you overbet the turn, you're basically setting up for rivers like this one, and you can work in some bluffs with some hands like queen jack, king queen, and you don't want to be using all of those hands, but sometimes mixing in some different ones might be a good play. Also, you want to try and bluff more when you do not have a spade. A hand like queen jack of hearts would be a great bluff here on the river, and you should certainly work that into your game. Back over to Garrett on the river. Not the most fun of spots, and this is one of the reasons why I really do like seeing a turn fold. But as played, I kind of think you do have to call the 8s down, because let's start off with what you block. All right, you block 8-6 and Jack 8 suited. 8-6 suited, Jack 8 suited. Both hands that have now made a straight in the river and are much less likely because you have pocket 8s. It's also not as likely your opponent's bluffing with a hand like 8-7 suited, even though I think in general if Fees did hit a 7, he would check the river. But that hand is now less likely to be bluffing as well because you do have pocket 8s. So what hands are going to be bluffing? It's mainly going to be those overcard hands, those king, queen jack, queen jack, maybe even a hand like ace 4 of diamonds. Those are going to be the kinds of bluffs that I think Fees, or really, the button or the cutoff in this hand is going to be choosing. And you don't really block any of those. So you do block a bunch of value bets. You don't block any bluffs. And again, kind of going back to the turn, you can't really call this turn and planning to fold a bunch of rivers, or people that will fire 3 are going to destroy you. Again, this is why we fold the turn, but if you're going to call the turn, you're going to have to man up and call one of the best rivers. Unless maybe Garrett can get away.
Sorry.
Can I see it?
Yeah, it's cheap. It's like
Oh, it looks nice.
$10 trinket.
Should put a glass over it, replace it with and then put glass over it. Wonder, where could you go for that? Maybe where could you go to get that?
Oh, and Garrett makes the call.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Sees the bad news. Ouch.
$123,000 pot.
I want to answer this really quick. I know you guys can deduce what happens based on the pot size in these videos. However, I have to use stuff like the pot size to get new viewers in the door. So keep that in mind when you're watching these videos. It's about the analysis, it's about the process, maybe some humor to some extent. I am not trying to fool you guys and think something happened different. This video is about the analysis. I want to thank everyone for joining for today's Hand from Live at the Bike. And again, if you're interested in Upswing Poker material, everything's 20% off until midnight tonight. To check it out over on upswingpoker.com or click the link in the description below.